My phone buzzed with a text from my older sister, Delilah. The words on the screen made my hands shake. Madison is in the hospital. She took sleeping pills. If you do not come home right now, she will die because of you. I stared at those words for a full minute before typing back two words that would have been impossible for me 3 months ago. Go ahead. I hit send and turned off my phone. 3 months ago, I never thought I would have the courage to type those two words to my own sister. Before I tell you how I got to this point, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. This story is about how I went from being the family doormat to someone who finally chose herself even when it meant watching my world burn. Trust me, you will want to stick around for this one because the ending will shock you. Growing up in Colorado Springs, I was always the forgotten middle child. My family consisted of my dad, Larry, who sold insurance for a living, my mom, Patricia, who worked as a nurse at the local hospital, my older sister, Delilah, who was 28 and already a successful lawyer, and my younger sister, Madison, who was 22, and the undisputed golden child of our family. Madison had everything I did not. She had gorgeous blonde hair that caught the sunlight, perfectly bright blue eyes that sparkled when she laughed, and a smile that could charm anyone within a 5-foot radius. Meanwhile, I had boring brown hair, plain brown eyes, and what my mother always called a perfectly normal appearance. Normal was not a compliment in the Thompson household. From the time we were little kids, Madison could do no wrong. She got the bigger bedroom, the nicer clothes, and the majority of our parents' attention. While she was being driven to dance classes and piano lessons, I was at home doing dishes and making sure her homework was finished. Delilah got to focus entirely on her studies and career goals, but I was expected to help raise Madison because I was naturally nurturing. By the time I turned 25, I had managed to escape to Denver, where I worked as a third-grade teacher. My life there was simple but peaceful. I had a cozy one-bedroom apartment with plants on every windowsill and books stacked on every surface. Most importantly, I had Jake, my boyfriend of 2 years, who worked as a software engineer. Jake was the first person in my life who actually listened when I spoke and remembered the little things I cared about. Everything changed when Madison called me on a Tuesday evening in March. She was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words through the phone. "Autumn, you will never guess what happened today," she managed between sobs. "Connor proposed to me. Can you believe it? He got down on one knee right there in the middle of the restaurant where we had our first date 6 months ago." Connor was Madison's new boyfriend, a 30-year-old plastic surgeon who had graduated from Harvard Medical School. According to Madison, he came from old money, was planning to open his own practice within the year, and looked like he belonged on the cover of a medical journal. She had been dating him for exactly 6 months and 2 weeks. "He is absolutely perfect, Autumn," Madison gushed. "Mom and Dad love him so much. Delilah says he is exactly the kind of man she always pictured me marrying. Even his parents adore me. We are planning this huge engagement party next weekend, and you absolutely have to come home for it. I need my big sister there." The way she said "big sister" made my heart melt a little bit. Despite everything, Madison was still my baby sister, and hearing genuine excitement in her voice made me genuinely happy for her. I had been working extra hours to save money, but I decided right then that I would buy a new dress and drive the 4 hours back to Colorado Springs to celebrate with her. "Of course I will be there," I told her. "I would not miss it for the world." I spent the next week shopping for the perfect gift and the perfect outfit. I found a beautiful navy blue dress that actually made me feel confident, and I bought Madison a set of pearl earrings that had cost me almost $300. The drive back to Colorado Springs felt different this time. Maybe Madison and I could finally have the sisterly relationship I had always wanted. The engagement party was held at our family home, which my parents had spent the entire week decorating with white roses and gold accents. When I walked through the front door carrying my carefully wrapped gift, I immediately felt invisible again. Everyone was clustered around Madison and Connor in the living room, and nobody even noticed when I entered the house. Connor was exactly as handsome as Madison had described, with dark hair styled perfectly, and the kind of smile that belonged in toothpaste commercials. He wore an expensive-looking navy suit and shook hands with everyone like he was running for political office. When Madison introduced us, he gave me a polite but distant smile and said, "Madison has told me so much about you." Throughout the evening, I watched my mother introduce me to family friends as our middle daughter, the elementary school teacher, while she introduced Madison as our baby who just got engaged to this wonderful surgeon and will be starting her new job as a marketing manager at a Fortune 500 company next month. The difference in tone was unmistakable. I tried to push down the familiar feeling of being overlooked and focused on making sure Madison was happy. I helped serve drinks, took photos of her and Connor, and listened to story after story about how perfect their relationship was. But something felt off about Connor that I could not quite put my finger on. When people were not looking directly at him, his smile would fade completely, and I caught him checking his phone constantly throughout the night. The drive back to Denver left me with a strange feeling in my stomach. Madison seemed so happy, and Connor appeared to be everything our family wanted for her. So why did I feel like something was wrong? 2 weeks after the engagement party, Jake was scrolling through his phone while we watched Netflix together on my couch. Suddenly, he sat up straight and turned to me with a concerned expression. "Autumn is this Madison's fiancée?" he asked, showing me his phone screen. There on his Tinder feed was Connor's photo, clear as day. The profile showed him in a different suit, smiling that same toothpaste commercial smile, with a bio that read, "Looking for fun, no strings attached, new to the area, and ready to meet new people." I stared at the screen for a full 30 seconds before I could process what I was seeing. Jake quickly took a screenshot before the profile disappeared from his feed. "There has to be some explanation," I said, even though my heart was already sinking. "Maybe someone is using his photos to catfish people. Maybe this is an old profile he forgot to delete. Maybe." But deep down I knew. The uncomfortable feeling I had gotten at the engagement party suddenly made perfect sense. Connor had been checking his phone because he was probably arranging dates with other women while celebrating his engagement to my sister. Instead of calling Madison immediately, I decided to do some investigating on my own. I could not accuse her fiancé of cheating based on a dating profile alone, especially not when my family already saw me as the troublemaker who tried to ruin Madison's happiness. The next morning, I called in sick to work and made the 4-hour drive back to Colorado Springs. I knew Connor worked at Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital, and I knew he usually grabbed lunch at the Italian restaurant 2 blocks away because Madison had mentioned it several times. I felt like a crazy person, but I had to know the truth. I spent 6 hours following Connor around like a private investigator. I watched him leave the hospital at 12:30 p.m., drive to the Italian restaurant, and sit down at a table near the window. At 12:45 p.m., a woman with curly red hair and a green dress joined him at his table. They were clearly not just friends. I watched Connor reach across the table to hold her hand, lean in to whisper something in her ear that made her laugh, and kiss her goodbye when they left the restaurant together. I took photos of everything with my phone, my hands shaking the entire time. The woman was beautiful, probably around 30 years old, and she wore a wedding ring on her left hand. She kissed Connor like they had been together for years, not like someone he had just met on a dating app. The drive back to Denver was the longest 4 hours of my life. I knew I had to tell Madison what I had seen, but I also knew how she would react. Madison had never handled criticism well, especially when it came to the men she dated. But Connor was about to become her husband. She deserved to know the truth. That evening, I called Madison and tried to ease into the conversation as gently as possible. "Madison, I need to talk to you about something important," I began. "I was in Colorado Springs today, and I saw Connor having lunch with another woman. It looked like more than just a business meeting or a friendship. I took some photos that I think you should see." The silence on the other end of the phone lasted for almost 10 seconds before Madison exploded. "Are you kidding me right now, Autumn? You are so jealous of my happiness that you are literally stalking my fiancé and trying to make up lies about him cheating. This is a new low even for you." "Madison, I am not making this up," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Jake found Connor on Tinder, and then I saw him with my own eyes. You know what I am going to call Connor right now and tell him exactly what you just accused him of. Then I am going to send him the photos you claim to have taken, and we will see how fast your little lies fall apart." She hung up on me before I could say another word. 20 minutes later, she called me back and I could hear Connor's voice in the background. "Connor says you are absolutely lying," Madison said, her voice ice cold. "He was having lunch with his cousin Sarah, who is visiting from California. She is married and has 2 kids. You took photos of him having lunch with his family, and now you are trying to make it into some kind of affair because you cannot stand seeing me happy." "Madison, please just look at the photos." "I already deleted your text messages without opening them. Connor says his cousin mentioned that some woman was taking photos of them from across the street, and now we know it was you. I cannot believe my own sister would stoop this low." The phone went dead again. I tried calling back 3 times, but Madison had blocked my number. Within an hour, I received angry text messages from both of my parents. My mother wrote, "How could you hurt Madison like this? She is crying her eyes out because her own sister tried to sabotage her engagement. Connor is a good man, and you should be ashamed of yourself." My father's message was even shorter. "Very disappointed in you. Call your sister and apologize." Delilah sent me the longest message. "I do not know what has gotten into you lately, but you need to fix this immediately. Madison called me sobbing about your accusations against Connor. This man makes her happy, and he comes from a good family. You need to apologize to both of them and promise to stop this behavior before you ruin her engagement completely." I spent that night staring at the photos on my phone and wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. But no matter how many times I looked at them, I could not convince myself that Connor and the red-haired woman were acting like cousins. The way they touched each other, the way they looked at each other, the way they kissed goodbye. That was not family behavior. For the next 6 months, my family treated me like I was toxic waste. Madison refused to speak to me. My parents only called when they needed to lecture me about my behavior, and Delilah sent me occasional texts asking when I planned to make things right. I spent most of that time wondering if I had destroyed my relationship with my family over a misunderstanding. Madison's wedding was planned for September, 6 months after the engagement party. Despite everything that had happened, I was not officially uninvited, though nobody had sent me any wedding details either. Jake kept encouraging me to go arguing that Madison was still my sister, and that I should be there to protect her if Connor really was cheating. "What if you are right about him?" Jake asked. "What if something happens at the wedding? Do you really want Madison to face that alone?" 2 days before the wedding, I drove back to Colorado Springs one more time. I had not spoken to Madison in 6 months, but I could not shake the feeling that she might need me. I bought a simple black dress and decided I would sit in the back row and keep my mouth shut unless something went terribly wrong. The wedding was being held at the fanciest country club in Colorado Springs, with 200 guests and enough white flowers to supply a funeral home for a month. Madison looked absolutely stunning in a dress that probably cost more than my annual rent. Connor looked handsome and confident as he stood at the altar in his black tuxedo. I slipped into the back row just as the ceremony began, and nobody in my family even noticed I was there. For the first hour, everything went perfectly. Madison glowed as she walked down the aisle. The vows were beautiful, and Connor seemed like the perfect groom. I started to wonder if I really had been wrong about everything I had seen. Then, just as the priest was about to pronounce them husband and wife, a woman's voice rang out from the back of the church. "Stop this wedding right now!" everyone turned around to see a woman with curly red hair in a green dress marching down the aisle. It was the same woman I had photographed with Connor 6 months earlier. She was carrying a manila envelope and looked absolutely furious. Connor Michael Davidson is already married, she announced to the entire church. He is married to me. We have been married for 2 years and we have an 18-month-old daughter together. The woman who introduced herself as Sarah Davidson opened her envelope and started passing around copies of their marriage certificate photos from their wedding and pictures of Connor holding a baby girl who had his exact same eyes. The church erupted in chaos. Madison fainted and had to be carried to a side room. Connor tried to run, but Sarah's brother and father blocked the exits. My parents stood frozen in shock while the wedding guests started talking all at once. The priest announced that the ceremony could not continue and asked everyone to leave quietly. I followed the crowd outside and waited by my car, not sure whether I should try to find Madison or just drive back to Denver. After about 30 minutes, my mother came storming across the parking lot with tears streaming down her face. "This is all your fault!" she screamed at me. "If you had tried harder to stop this wedding instead of just making accusations and then disappearing, Madison would not have been humiliated in front of 200 people. Mom, I tried to tell everyone about Connor 6 months ago." "You did not try hard enough. You gave up too easily. You let your own sister marry a man you knew was lying to her, and now she will never recover from this embarrassment." My father appeared beside her and pointed his finger in my face. "You knew something was wrong with that man, and you did not stop this from happening. What kind of sister does that make you?" Before I could respond, Delilah joined them. "You should have kept investigating until you found proof that everyone would believe," she said. "You should have found that Sarah woman 6 months ago. Instead, you let Madison plan this whole expensive wedding just so she could be humiliated in front of our entire extended family and all of her friends." I stood there listening to my family blame me for not preventing a disaster that I had actually tried to prevent, and something finally clicked in my brain. It did not matter what I did or did not do. In my family's eyes, I would always be the one at fault. When I tried to warn them about Connor, I was a liar who was trying to ruin Madison's happiness. When I did not try hard enough to prove he was cheating, I was a bad sister who let Madison get hurt. The final straw came 2 weeks later when Madison called me from a number I did not recognize. "Autumn, I need you to loan me $25,000, she said without even saying hello first. "Madison, I do not have that kind of money." "I do not care where you get it. I need $25,000 to pay for the wedding expenses since Connor disappeared and left me with all the bills. Mom and Dad already gave me everything they could, and Delilah helped with $5,000. You are the only one left who can help me." "I am a teacher, Madison. I make $32,000 a year. I do not have $25,000. "Then get a loan, cash out your retirement account, do whatever you have to do, but I need that money by next Friday." When I tried to explain that I genuinely could not come up with that amount of money, Madison started crying and hung up on me. Within an hour, both of my parents were calling to yell at me for refusing to help my sister in her time of need. "She is family," my mother said. "You are supposed to do whatever it takes to help family." My father was even more direct. "If you do not help Madison with this money, then do not bother calling us your family anymore." That night, I sat in my apartment with Jake and finally said the words I had been afraid to think for 25 years. "I do not think my family actually loves me," I told him. "I think they just keep me around to blame for everything that goes wrong and to help clean up everyone else's messes." Jake held my hand and asked the question that changed everything. "So what are you going to do about it?" The next morning, I blocked every member of my family on my phone, social media, and email. Jake and I started looking for jobs in other cities, and within a month, we found opportunities in Portland, Oregon. I resigned from my teaching position, packed everything I owned into a moving truck, and left Colorado without telling my family where I was going. Portland felt like a completely different world. I got hired at a prestigious private elementary school where my colleagues actually valued my opinions and invited me to social events. Jake found an even better position with a tech company downtown. For the first time in my adult life, I was surrounded by people who seemed to genuinely like spending time with me. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Martinez, who specialized in family trauma and childhood emotional neglect. During our sessions, I began to understand that my family's treatment of me was not normal or acceptable. Dr. Martinez helped me recognize patterns of emotional abuse that I had been accepting as normal for my entire life. Family members who truly love you do not consistently blame you for things that are not your fault, she explained during one session. They do not ignore your needs while expecting you to meet everyone else's needs. They do not punish you for telling the truth or for having boundaries. Jake and I grew closer than ever. He proposed to me on a hiking trail overlooking the Columbia River Gorge with a ring he had designed himself and a speech about how he wanted to spend his life with someone who was brave enough to choose her own happiness. I said yes without hesitation. We started planning a small wedding with our new friends in Portland. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who celebrated my happiness instead of trying to tear it down. 3 months after I moved to Portland, I was working late at school when my phone rang from a number I did not recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered it. Autumn, this is Delilah. I am calling from a different phone because you blocked my number. My heart started pounding immediately. How did you get this number? That does not matter. What matters is that Madison is in serious trouble. She has been severely depressed since the wedding disaster, and last night she took a whole bottle of sleeping pills. She is in the hospital right now, and the doctors say she almost died. I felt sick to my stomach, but I forced myself to stay calm. Is she going to be okay? She will be physically fine, but mentally, she is falling apart. She keeps saying that none of this would have happened if you had not abandoned the family. She says you are the only person who ever really understood her, and now that you are gone, she does not see any point in living. Delilah Madison needs professional help, not... She needs her sister. You need to come home right now and fix this. If you do not come back to Colorado Springs immediately, Madison is going to try to kill herself again, and this time she might succeed. Her blood will be on your hands. I hung up the phone and immediately called Jake. He came to pick me up from school, and we spent the evening talking through everything with Dr. Martinez on an emergency phone call. This is a classic manipulation tactic, Dr. Martinez explained. They are using Madison's mental health crisis to try to force you back into your old role as the family caretaker and scapegoat. Madison's depression is real and serious, but it is not your responsibility to fix it, especially when your family has consistently blamed you for all of their problems. That night, I received the text message from Delilah that I mentioned at the beginning of this story. Madison is in the hospital. She took sleeping pills. If you do not come home right now, she will die because of you. I stared at that message for a long time, thinking about all the years I had spent trying to fix problems I had not created and apologizing for things that were not my fault. I thought about the way my family had blamed me for not preventing Madison's wedding disaster after they had refused to believe my warnings about Connor. I thought about the way they had demanded I give Madison money I did not have and then cut me off when I could not provide it. Then I typed the 2 words that set me free: go ahead. After I sent that message and turned off my phone, I felt something I had never experienced before in my relationship with my family. I felt peace. Jake held me while I cried that night, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. I had finally stopped trying to save people who did not want to be saved, and I had finally stopped accepting responsibility for problems I had not caused. The next day, I turned my phone back on to find 17 missed calls and 43 text messages from various family members and family friends, all telling me what a terrible person I was for abandoning my suicidal sister. I deleted every message without reading them completely and blocked every number they came from. Over the next few weeks, my family tried reaching me through mutual friends, through my old workplace, and even through Jake's social media accounts. Every message was the same: I was selfish, I was heartless, and I was responsible for Madison's mental health crisis. I later learned from a family friend who reached out privately that Madison had not actually tried to kill herself. She had taken 3 sleeping pills instead of 1, and then called Delilah to say she wanted to die. It had been a cry for attention, not a genuine suicide attempt, but my family had decided to use it as leverage to try to force me back into my old role. 6 months later, Jake and I got married in a small ceremony in Portland with 30 people who actually loved and supported us. My family was not there, and for the first time in my life, that felt like a blessing instead of a tragedy. I am now 27 years old, and I have been no contact with my family for over a year. I still love them, but I finally understand that love does not mean accepting abuse. I have learned that it is not my job to fix other people's problems or to sacrifice my own happiness to make other people comfortable. Madison did get professional help for her depression, and I genuinely hope she is doing better. But her healing is not my responsibility, and her mental health is not my fault. Delilah is still trying to convince mutual friends that I am a heartless monster who abandoned her family, but I have stopped caring about her opinion. My parents have made no effort to understand my perspective or to acknowledge their role in the family's dysfunction. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who will never value you. And sometimes the most loving response to manipulation is simply go ahead. I learned that setting boundaries is not about being mean or heartless. It is about recognizing your own worth and refusing to let other people treat you as less than you deserve. I learned that family is not just about blood relations, but about the people who consistently show up for you with love, respect, and support. Today, I am surrounded by people who celebrate my successes instead of minimizing them, who listen to my concerns instead of dismissing them, and who love me for who I am instead of what I can do for them. I have never been happier or more at peace with my life. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to cut contact with toxic family members? What would you have done if you were in my situation with Madison's threats? Share your thoughts in the comments below because I would love to hear about your experiences with setting boundaries in difficult family situations. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family drama and finding your own path to happiness. And please share this video with anyone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose yourself even when it is the hardest choice you will ever make. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you remember that your peace of mind and emotional well-being are always worth protecting, no matter who tries to convince you otherwise.